The Krell were apex predators by design. 9 feet of corded muscle, retractable claws that could slice through steel, and eyes that gleamed with predatory intelligence. Their empire stretched across 12 star systems, built on conquest and the unwavering belief that strength determined worth. To be Krell was to dominate. Captain Alara Voss had never intended to challenge that philosophy. She was a xenobiologist first, a reluctant soldier second, stationed aboard the Horizon's Edge when it stumbled into Krell territory during a routine mapping expedition. The diplomatic incident that followed had been tense, bordering on catastrophic, until the Krell Warmaster proposed an unusual solution: a cultural exchange. One human observer would remain on the Krell breeding world of Valrosh for 6 months. A test of courage, they called it. A death sentence, her crew whispered. Alara had volunteered before anyone could stop her. Valrosh was a savage moon, its jungles thick with bioluminescent flora and creatures that made Earth's prehistoric predators look tame. The Krell nursery compound sat in a clearing carved from the wilderness, a sprawling complex where juvenile Krell, cubs, as Alara privately thought of them, learned to hunt, fight, and survive. She was given quarters on the compound's edge, watched constantly by adult Krell who regarded her with barely concealed disdain. Humans were prey animals in their eyes, weak, soft, unworthy of notice. The cubs, however, were curious. There were 15 of them, ranging from 4 to 7 years old in human terms. Though they stood nearly 6 feet tall and possessed strength that would shame a grown man, they watched Alara from a distance at first, golden eyes tracking her movements as she collected soil samples and documented the local ecosystem. She pretended not to notice, giving them space, respecting the invisible boundaries that separated predator from prey. Then came the storm. Valrosh's weather systems were violent and unpredictable. The typhoon struck without warning, tearing through the compound with winds that uprooted trees and sent debris flying like shrapnel. Alara had taken shelter in the communal den, the only structure rated for such conditions, when she heard the sound that changed everything. A cub's cry, high and terrified, cutting through the howling wind. The adult Krell had retreated to the reinforced bunkers following protocol. Cubs were expected to find their own shelter, a test of survival instinct. But Alara heard that cry and thought of nothing but a child in danger. She grabbed her emergency kit and plunged back into the storm. She found 3 of them huddled beneath a collapsed observation tower, trapped by twisted metal and exposed to the elements. The smallest, barely 4 feet tall, was bleeding from a gash across his shoulder. The others were trying frantically to lift the debris, but even their impressive strength couldn't shift the wreckage in the mud and wind. Alara didn't hesitate. She deployed the plasma torch from her kit and began cutting through the metal, her hand steady despite the screaming wind. The cubs stared at her, confusion and something else flickering in their predatory eyes. When the last beam fell away, she reached for the injured cub and he didn't resist. She carried him to shelter, the other 2 following close behind, and spent the next hour treating his wound with the medical supplies she'd brought. She spoke to them softly as she worked, her voice calm and steady. "You're going to be fine. Just hold still. That's it. You're very brave." The injured cub, she would later learn his name was Rin, watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. When she finished bandaging him, he reached out one massive paw and touched her face with surprising gentleness, claws carefully retracted. "Why?" he asked in broken standard. "We—" "Not your pack," Alara smiled. "Where I come from, we help those who need it. Pack or not." By the time the storm passed, word had spread. The human had risked her life for cubs that weren't her own. The adult Krell were baffled, viewing it as either remarkable stupidity or incomprehensible weakness. But the cubs understood something their elders had forgotten. Strength wasn't just about claws and teeth. It was about choosing to act when others wouldn't. Over the following weeks, the cubs began to gravitate toward Alara. They brought her kills from their hunts, offerings she accepted with genuine gratitude, even as she quietly supplemented her diet with human rations. They demonstrated their tracking skills, preening under her praise. They asked endless questions about Earth, about humans, about the strange concepts she spoke of: kindness, compassion, sacrifice. Rin became her constant shadow. The eldest of the group at 7 years old, he was already showing the tactical intelligence that would mark him as a future leader. He organized the others, ensuring they didn't overwhelm Alara with their enthusiasm. He learned her language with astonishing speed and began translating her explanations of human culture to the younger cubs. "Your people are weak in body," he observed one evening as they sat watching Valrosh's twin moons rise. "But strong in, what is word, heart?" "Heart," Alara agreed. "We believe that how you treat others, especially those weaker than yourself, defines your true strength." Rin's ear tufts flicked thoughtfully. "Krell believe only the strong deserve to live. And yet you're still here," Alara pointed out gently. "You were trapped in that storm. Does that make you weak?" His eyes widened, a fundamental belief suddenly challenged. "No, I am Krell. I will be strong." "You already are," Alara said. "Strength isn't about never needing help. It's about what you do with the strength you have." The turning point came during the rite of first blood, a ceremonial hunt where the cubs would prove themselves to the adults. It was meant to be a straightforward exercise, track and kill a Valroshi predator under supervision. But the creature they encountered was far larger than expected, a territorial male in musth, driven mad by mating hormones. It killed the supervising adult in the first moments of the attack. The cubs scattered in panic as the creature rampaged through their formation. Alara, observing from what was supposed to be a safe distance, saw immediately that they would be slaughtered. The cubs were skilled but untested. The predator was experience and fury incarnate. She made a choice. Her plasma rifle sang, shots precise and calculated, driving the creature back without killing it, giving the cubs time to regroup. "Rin!" she shouted. "Flanking pattern Delta, now!" It was a human military tactic, something she'd mentioned in passing during one of their many conversations. Rin's eyes met hers across the chaos, and understanding flashed between them. He barked orders in Krell battle cant, and the cubs moved with sudden coordination, encircling the predator, harrying it from multiple angles while Alara's covering fire kept it off balance. When Rin made the killing strike, a perfect leap that took the creature's throat, he didn't roar in triumph. He turned to Alara and bowed his head, a gesture of profound respect in Krell culture. One by one, the other cubs followed. When the rescue team arrived, they found the dead predator, the dead adult, and 15 juvenile Krell kneeling in a circle around a single human woman. The cubs refused to move until Alara gave them permission, and when questioned, Rin spoke with absolute certainty. "She is our alpha. We choose her." The scandal that followed nearly sparked an interstellar incident. Krell cubs rejecting their own kind to follow a human was unprecedented, unthinkable, but Krell law was clear. Cubs had the right to choose their teacher, and once chosen, that bond was sacred. Captain Alara Voss returned to the horizon's edge 6 months later with 15 Krell cubs who refused to leave her side. She'd been assigned to study their culture. Instead, she'd taught them a new definition of strength, and in doing so, she'd earned a loyalty that would reshape the future of 2 species. Rin stood at her right hand as they boarded the human ship, his golden eyes scanning the gathered crew with protective intensity. "They will learn," he said quietly, more promise than prediction. "That humans are not prey," Alara smiled, resting a hand on his massive shoulder, "and that Krell can be more than predators." Together, they walked into the unknown, human and Krell, teacher and student, bound by a choice that transcended species and the unbreakable loyalty that followed.